everyone. I'm on my way home this evening from Merritt, heading to Chilliwack. So I'm a little tired this evening. I just wanted to thank everyone for all of the awesome comments and messages I got from my first original post, which was of course initially on Facebook, and then I moved it over to YouTube so that I am officially a YouTuber. So at this point, most people will know who I am. For those coming in later in the game with me posting things, my name is Kayla Muscle, and I'm the only woman in history to become professional as a saddle bronc rider. So that's my claim to fame. I got a lot of this stuff that I've done in my life and have done well at, but that seems to be the standout point and the thing that I've been doing for the majority of my life. So my past history, I'll just talk a little bit about my history. So growing up, I was always around horses. I rode as a really young kid, was horse crazy, and then my mom wanted us to learn. I had two older brothers and a younger sister, or I have, and mom wanted to make sure that we learned how to ride properly. So we took English riding lessons, and my sister and I got into pony club, which then meant that we were doing 3-day eventing and horse showing. Later I was vaulting. Around the same time I was doing gymkhana, and then it was about when I was 10 years old, my dad was on the rodeo committee for a rodeo association in town. It was our first annual rodeo, and I saw barrel racers, so I thought that I really wanted to do that. And my parents always had a lot of really good racing bloodline horses. My dad and mom raced horses up till I was born, and then my grandparents had raced horses up until actually fairly recently. So we always had some really good athletic running blood horses, and so I actually took one of those horses that was my dad's calf horse and turned him into a barrel racing horse. And he'd run really fast, but man, he didn't really know the barrel pattern. I just literally was a good little jockey, and he was flat out running around the barrels, and we had these big old pockets, and we started cleaning up pretty soon, and I made a lot of barrel racers pretty unhappy because here I was, this little kid on this runaway barrel horse with these huge barrels, and cleaning up, and I was riding a little kid saddle. I didn't even have a barrel saddle until I won my first barrel saddle the following year. So anyways, that was my start in rodeo. And then in the following year, I was in Williams Lake Indoor Rodeo, which I mentioned I'm going to again to ride my first rodeo this year. And I saw some steer riders, and so I was like, hey, I think I want to ride steers. So then again, next year I crack out steer riding. I'm riding two-handed steer rider. I do really well, and of course I'm one of the few girls riding, and there was a couple other girls at the time, but predominantly boys, as it usually is. So I did pretty good, made the finals a few years, and then I was like, man, this is kind of easy, let's make this a little harder. And I wanted to ride one-handed, and my dad was kind of like, why would you ride one-handed when you're cleaning up riding two? And I was like, well, why not? This is easy. I'm like, I want to make it harder. So I went through a year where I was trying to figure out how to find my balance and everything, going from two-handed riding to one-handed riding. But I did figure it out, and the following year I made the finals again. So around the same time when I was steer riding, I had decided I was going to trick ride, and a friend of ours had a trick riding book. His name was Ray Lamb, and he had a trick riding saddle. So I didn't have anyone in the area that knew anything about trick riding that could kind of help me, but he gave me the book, and he gave me the trick saddle to lend it to me, and then I kind of did a little bit, enough to kind of get an idea that I really wanted to learn how to trick ride. So the book was called 101 Ways to Break Your Neck, by Frankie Dean. Ironically, I never did break my neck trick riding, but that's another story. So I learned how I found myself a trick riding saddle, ended up buying the book, and it showed you how to get into tricks, get out of tricks, kind of all the handholds you needed. And when I first started trick riding, I had never really seen trick riders. I mean, I saw a little bit on TV, but I hadn't really like watched them, or I wasn't really around them. And so when I was wanting to trick ride, what I ended up doing is basically more similar to vaulting, is like do tricks on the fly. Like, so I would do a trick like halfway down the arena, then I'd swap out at the end, and then I'd do another trick down the end of the arena, and would kind of like make a routine of it. And my poor horse was like so tired at the end of it, because I wasn't trick riding with anybody else. And it wasn't until I actually got asked to trick ride at Calgary Stampede. It was the first time that I actually trick rode with anybody, and it seemed relatively easy, because I only had to run around once holding one trick, and then I got a break, and then I only had to do that 3 times versus like 6 to 8 laps of the arena doing continuous tricks. So anyways, so let me see here. I got too old to ride steers, and I was wanting to stay in the rough stock events, and I actually wanted to ride bulls, is what I wanted to do. And my dad wasn't very pleased at that thought, despite the fact that he'd ridden bulls himself, and Mom definitely was not a fan. I did get on a few bulls, like out of riding steers, but it was kind of taboo, and I kind of got the, if you're living at home, you're not riding bulls. So I kind of put that on the back burner. I mean, I suppose I have a little bit of regret with not riding bulls, but I am happy. My dad ended up convincing me to ride saddle bronc, and I'm kind of glad he did, because it is a little bit more unique for sure. At the time I was 16, my brother and I went to bronc riding school. It was a Mel Highland bronc riding school, and we went to this school. Yeah. And so that was my first school, and I don't really have a huge recollection of it, other than obviously I was out there to prove myself. And I remember, and I have this clipped out of a magazine from that. I believe it was like in somewhere in the Okanagan in BC, and it was comparing me and another guy that was like 40. So I was 16, a female, and a guy that's 40. That and I believe I got best, most improved at that school. So in this article, it was saying, although they tried their best and blah blah blah, although they won't make professional, cowboys or cowgirls, they are, they tried it their best, and it's nice to see them at the school. That was kind of like in the basic sense what they were saying, and that was coming from Mel Highland. I mean, granted, newspapers kind of say what they want to, but that was the gist of it. And I remember reading that, and I was like, oh, nice. So anyways, I struggled a bit when I was 16, 17. I got a lot of broncs. I had a hard time. I mean, I'd say I had a hell of a time getting my feet going, because since I was about 10 years old, I broke horses for people, and I get them rode. I mean, the buckers I get rode, but I'd pull their heads up, and I'd clamp down and turn them around. And I mean, for me to get my legs moving and going on the bronc, it was like trying to teach an old dog new tricks. And I wasn't even that old, but I had been on so many colts over the years that getting on a saddle bronc, it was hard to learn, to get in time and everything. So I would get some broncs rode, but it was not with my feet moving. So it kind of pissed me off a bit, because my brother didn't really have that. I mean, granted, he's athletic and everything, but he didn't have that ingraining, training of like riding the colts and like kind of creating bad habits for saddle bronc riding. So it came a heck of a lot easier for him, and it was a bit frustrating for me because I'm like, shit, I've ridden horses all my life and everything. You know, I'm a good rider, and here he comes out of nowhere, hasn't ridden horses since he was a kid, and he's like kicking ass, right? So, anyways, as many of you know, I've been pretty hard on myself in the past, and at that time in my life, I mean, frig, I was like so hard on myself and beating myself up. And so, anyways, I went probably into my 17th year, and then I got really busy with trick riding contracts. So I was doing trick riding contracts. I'd been doing Calgary Stampede, and then I had a bunch all over like BC and Alberta and some of the states. So I thought, you know, I'm gonna come back to the bronc riding. In a way, I almost felt like I wasn't mentally ready to be riding, and I was right. Like it wasn't until I quit trick riding, I retired in '99, at the age of 21, and then I cracked back out as a saddle bronc rider, and surprisingly things started rolling and started happening significantly better than they were before. I was starting to get my feet moving and things rolling and stuff. And going back onto what I was saying with my dad convincing me to ride saddle bronc is actually more of a cool thing that I ended up being a saddle bronc rider versus a bull rider, because there's been a ton of bull riding females in the past that have done really well. From my knowledge, there hasn't been that many women that rode saddle bronc, especially in the modern style of riding. So to become good at what I've done as a female saddle bronc rider, and then also becoming the first and only professional saddle bronc rider in basically the world, I mean, that's a pretty freaking cool accomplishment. So I can't say that I definitely don't have other goals I've had in the past I would like to accomplish. At this point in my career, it's still getting a little bit more doubtful I will accomplish that, but I'm kind of coming to terms that, you know, it's okay. You know, I am cracking back out this year again, and I'm looking forward to what happens. And I mean, if everything feels really good, and I mean, I will travel. But if things are kind of like, well, you know, I might take it easy. I don't know. I haven't really got it set in stone. I've gone through a lot with my sport and my event, and it's made me the person I am today. And there's, with the good, and you know, there's always the bad and the ups and downs and trials and tribulations, and I've had quite a few rough goes with it. I've had a lot of injuries. I've suffered with depression while I've gone through it. I've been really hard on myself. You know, there's so many things. People look at me at times and think I'm like the toughest person, and like, you know, they wish they could be like me, and they look at me as like this really strong, courageous person who like won't take no for an answer, and you know, can do anything. And I just want to let everyone know that I'm not any different than anybody else. I guess the only difference might be that I've believed in myself when others haven't. But granted, I've had some good support system from my family, even though they haven't necessarily accepted what I've done. I've always known that they've had my back, you know, and things that make me happy. You know, they want me to be happy. I mean, that being said, I've had lots of years with riding broncs where I was not happy and I was miserable, and I would take it out on my family and my friends and stuff, and I would be like one of those freaking people you didn't want to be around. And you know, and I regret that I was like that. But at the same time, I've learned over the years that I don't need to take things as seriously as I used to, and that, you know, it's not life and death with rodeo. Even the event I chose, it's like 2/3 of it are out of my control. All I can control is how well I ride on the bronc that I'm given. The other 2/3 of it is, you know, 1/3 of it's the bronc I draw, so which I have no control over, And the second one is the judge's interpretation of how I ride. And as we all know, I mean, judge sport, it doesn't matter gender or whatever else. I mean, there's always going to be some favoritism in it. And sometimes it goes your way and other times it doesn't. And I believe it kind of works out in the wash. But I chose a sport that, like I said, it was... I tried to control a sport that's not controllable, I guess. And so I'm learning that, you know, if I want to do this, I have to do it because I enjoy doing it, because I love doing it, and I do. And in all honesty, it wasn't until I broke my neck in 2014, broke it in 2 spots in C6, and the first thing that crossed my mind when that happened was, if I had any idea that this would have happened, I'm like, I would have done things differently. And I went through a rough year. I did come back to riding. I had to really dig deep down in my soul and say, you know what, I still want to ride. I still have this, you know, this feeling that I still have to, you know, to come back and at least to end on my own terms, if nothing else. And since I've come back, I've enjoyed it a lot more. I've been a lot happier. I haven't been so hard on myself. It doesn't really matter so much the outcome. I've appreciated all the fans and friends and family that have supported me over the years, that have encouraged me, that have helped pick me up when I'm down, and I'm very grateful for that. In a way, too, I feel almost like this feeling that an almost slight obligation. I hate to look at it that way, but I don't really know the right word, but that if I can continue to ride and I still have the desire to ride, that I want to keep riding, because I see how much I inspire others and how much of a difference it makes in people sort of thinking about where their limitations might be and realizing that, you know what, I'm not as limited as I think I am. And that's probably more so why I'm riding these days. I can't say, I'm not excited about coming back riding, because I actually definitely am. I've had a shoulder that's been in rough shape for 10 years and it's pretty darn good now. So I'm actually quite stoked to be back in the saddle. So that's kind of it for now. Basic background of me, and I just figured I need to be plugging away at this while I'm driving, because that seems to be the only time I get extra time, and I see how much value I've given or be to other people just by being able to relate and being a real person, because I am a real person, and like I said, none of you are any different. It's just a matter of you believing in yourself and figuring out how you're going to do what you want to do. There's nothing holding you back except yourself. And, you know, all these excuses you make, everything you do to justify why you can't do this or you can't do that, or I'm not good enough, or, you know, it's silly, really. I mean, it's your life. You can choose to do what you want with it, and to allow somebody else to hold you back, to, you know, you allowing yourself to hold you back. I mean, it's your choice in your life. So if you want something bad enough, you better get out and get it. So I hope everyone had an awesome weekend. I am still a ways from home, but I'm running out of a topic right now. So we will chat with y'all later, and I love you.